have for a thrill. We have stories of the dead coming back
to life, tales of the
night evil.
So sit back, relax, and enjoy.
The All-American Spookshow.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the All-American Spookshow podcast. I'm Josh, and as always, I'm joined with my friend Will.
What's up?
And my good friend, the Professor Smoke.
Hey.
And today we're going to travel back to the year 1987. And we're going to
Whoa. Hold on.
What?
Why is Smoke your good friend?
Well, look, you're both my good friends.
Oh, I'm jealous.
I need to, lather him up a little bit more, that's all.
Oh, so it's a ruse. I got it.
Yes,
Go ahead.
yes.
You could have let me have the moment just for a second.
Yeah, exactly. Very selfish person. We're traveling back to the year 1987 to one of our favorite cult movies. You can officially call this a cult movie because it was a financial flop in the box office when it came out. So we're going to be talking about The Monster Squad, of course. So we're going to discover whether Wolfman has nards or not.
Wolfman has nards!
Indeed he does.
You know, there was actually one of the main characters in this movie, Sean. He's basically the main kid, right? He's the leader of the Monster Squad. His name was Andre Gower. He actually directed and produced a documentary back in 2018, so this is fairly recent, called Wolfman's Got Nards. And I looked around to see if I could find it anywhere, and I don't think it ever got released on anything. It's not streamed.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, because I did see that, too, out there. I mean, I've seen it out. I mean, I haven't seen the documentary, but I've seen information about the documentary being out there, and I was like, well, let me double check. It's not on my DVD, for sure, because my DVD came out before that, although there is a decent documentary on the DVD, too. But not that one.
Yeah, apparently, for best I can tell, it's never been released on anything other than small theater run, like in Alamo Draft Houses, that kind of thing. Yeah. And then, of course, it played in film festivals and stuff like that. But as far as I can tell, that's pretty much it. Never been released streaming, never been released on DVD or anything. So hopefully, maybe one day soon, we'll be able to get our hands on it and talk about it. But it sounds like it'd be pretty interesting. At least.
Wait. You want to get your hands on Wolfman Has Nards?
Yeah, why not?
On Wolfman's Heart?
It sounds like a positive experience. I wouldn't see why I wouldn't want it.
I mean, I've seen it. It's just 5 minutes of Wolfman Nards. It's really weird.
Well, let's face it, all you need is about two, right? So.
Extra fuzzy edition.
But yeah, that DVD you're talking about, I think was the only DVD release of this movie. Which was the 20th anniversary, so this would have been 2007 that it came out.
Yep. It was that two disc set. I don't know if it ever got put out on Blu-ray or not.
I think it did, but at least from what I read, the Blu-ray basically only had the movie. It didn't have any of the extra shit that was on that 20th anniversary 2-disc DVD set. And apparently it only got released once on VHS too, back in '88 on Vestron Video.
Oh, yeah. You did used to have that. I don't know what happened to that. I can't find my VHS copy of it, but I did have that.
But it's just weird that a movie, I guess weird but understandable, that a movie that is so popular, the cult status of it, that there haven't been more releases other than just basically one VHS release, one DVD release with stuff on it, and then one lean Blu-ray release. But from what I could be wrong, but from what I can tell, that's pretty much all that's ever been released. You'd think there'd be more, some beefed up Scream Factory or whatever the hell edition out there somewhere, but no, at least not yet.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even remember who put the Blu-ray out. If they did, like I said, I definitely have the 2-disc set DVD, but the Blu-ray I don't even remember if it's the same company or what. And now I don't know if it might be a licensing deal where some of these Scream Factory couldn't get a hold of it or whatever. But.
And now we're 3 years past the 30th anniversary. As of right now, we're recording in 2020, So odds are you're probably not getting anything new at least until the 35th, maybe the 40th anniversary. So it's going to be a while before you see anything more, I would imagine. But maybe there'll be more extra stuff whenever they finally release Wolfman's Got Nards on.
They do need to do that. Those documentaries are pretty awesome because I've seen, I think it's called Just Desserts, which was the Creep Show full-length, feature-length documentary. Interesting. So, I mean, when they're put together that way, and a lot of times these DVD documentary special features are they're well put together and everything, but they're not as extensive as when these feature-length ones are made. And so hopefully, somebody will get around to putting that out.
Yeah, and there's so many streaming platforms now, like Hulu, Netflix, that have a ton of documentaries. You think one of them would, throw it
Shudder, that'd be right up Shudder's alley.
Yeah, and Shudder has a lot of those type of documentaries too.
Mm-hmm.
On their service. So yeah, I guess before we get into the background and everything else we're going to talk about today, if you want to get in contact with us, you can email us at allamericanspookshow@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter at AASpookshow. And we are also on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. You can find us by searching All American Spook Show. We have a TeePublic page. You can go on there and buy logo merchandise. I keep meaning to get around to some new stuff on there. There's a couple of different logos on there, like the older logo and now the newer logo. I'm pretty sure it's on there, so you can buy T-shirts and mugs and whatever else they slap the logo on. You can find that there, and eventually we'll get around to some more stuff. So I guess before we dive into some of the background, what have you guys been doing in the middle of a literally global pandemic? Obviously, there's no theaters open, so I mean, what have you guys been streaming?
And AMC's in danger of closing for good, unfortunately, it seems like.
Yeah, I saw that like apparently their credit ratings went to shit, and they may never open it back up.
Yeah, which is pretty crazy. But
yeah, I'm sure Regal or another one of these big, that won't go. I would find it hard to believe that they would completely go away.
There'll be hundreds of thousands of
theaters,
abandoned
theaters empty forever. There's no way that some billion-dollar corporation doesn't come and scoop that up.
Right.
You would think, but who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? This has affected things so hard, man. There's really no telling what's going to happen in the near future. That'd be a lot of theaters, because isn't AMC the biggest theater chain in the U.S.?
I thought it was. I mean, I know there's a lot of other ones out there, like Cinemark and
Regal
and stuff. But yeah, I would assume that AMC would have been the biggest one.
I'm pretty sure in one of those articles they said that AMC was the biggest in the U.S. So yeah, you wouldn't think that would just go away forever. Somebody'd have to snatch that up if that happens. Mm-hmm. Maybe we could buy it.
The All American Spook Show.
Yeah, it'd just be Spook Show
theater chain.
Spook Show theaters.
Spook Show National.
Yeah.
And come watch the latest Disney movie.
And Wolfman's got nards over and over again.
Yes, that's right. We'll have that in the midnight movies.
Will, have you been streaming anything, watching anything new lately other than what we've been talking about here on the show?
Not really. I haven't really got to dig into that much TV. I've been watching the latest season of Clone Wars. Mm-hmm. As it hits Disney Plus. But that's honestly about it.
I'm still watching the second season of Clone Wars, so I got a ways to go before I get caught up on that.
Now, I didn't watch it, but I walked in occasionally on my wife watching The Tiger King.
Oh, we watched that.
We definitely watched that too.
I wasn't going to mention that. I'd kind of forgot about it already. But yeah, we blew through that in like 2 days.
Yeah, you did too.
You did what?
Hey, yeah, I blew the tiger straight through the Tiger King. What? You got jokes tonight, huh?
No, you're the one tossing them up.
You're right.
Tossing what? Oh,
that's what I said.
Damn it! It's a little too easy tonight, guys. I'm a wide open. Oh, I should just stop now. Yeah, that is interesting. I don't know. I think that's like America's train wreck right now. Like
like I was telling somebody yesterday, I think it was whenever we look back on the coronavirus, we're going to think it's going to automatically the next thing after coronavirus you're going to think about is Tiger King.
Yeah, it's going to be like
in this era.
It's going to be like all the holidays and birthdays and shit you missed. It'll be all the sports that just went away for a while and Tiger King.
Yeah, I can't even count how many memes there's been for this thing.
Oh, dude, it's insane.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You go on Facebook or any of those. That's all it is.
The one thing that like I said, I didn't get to sit down and watch it, but I walked in on it occasionally. It very much reminded me. Did y'all ever see? I guess it's a documentary called "The Wild and Wonderful Whites of West Virginia."
I never watched it, but I remember hearing about it.
I've heard of it.
Yeah. It follows around like this family, the Whites, and they're pretty much all like whacked out on meth and doing crazy stuff. Like, and going to jail, shooting people, all that stuff. Yeah,
it's kind of like that, except like it kind of tells it's almost like a tragic tale of this dude that is kind of a big time local celebrity in his little area, if not known nationwide for, you know, like owning this big cat zoo park. It's kind of just the story of this dude's downfall, basically. But it's literally like watching a redneck train wreck, you know. It's just.
And then there was the other guy who has one in Myrtle Beach, which I didn't even know about until this documentary, really.
I didn't know anything about the dude. I knew of that park down there.
Oh, okay.
Because, you know, there's a place, you know, we don't want to get too local, but there's a place there, you know, for everybody that's not from around here and never been to Myrtle Beach, down there called Barefoot Landing. It's like a huge shopping center. It's like an outdoor mall, basically, but it's a huge outdoor shopping center around like a big lake, you know, and there's theaters and there's all restaurants and all kinds of stuff around there. And inside there's like this glass cage where they don't always have them there, but I think pretty much every day there's at least a couple of tigers in there, and that's for that dude's park.
Oh, okay.
So, like, you know, basically they set it up in there to where you can take pictures with tiger cubs, or, you know, you can just look at the tigers in the cage or whatever, and then you can pay to go over to his safari park. That's that dude.
You can pay like $300 and some odd dollars.
Oh yeah, it's something crazy. Yeah, it's like $300, $400, $500 just to go to this dude's safari park and have your pictures taken with tiger cub and whatever the hell else they do there. I don't know, but it seems like a weird scene, at least according to that documentary, man. It's this dude's got like a harem going on, according to that.
Yeah, he's got, what, at least 3, 4, 5 wives? I don't know.
Yeah, it's like they frame it like this dude's like basically got like a harem going on with all these women that he hires. Whenever the cubs get too big to take the cute pictures with, they go and have them put down. I mean, that's the way they frame it in that documentary, man. It's pretty fucked up. Now, we don't know, you know, I don't think they know any more than we do whether that's true or not, but that's kind of what they claim, basically. But it's pretty wild, though. I mean, I'd recommend checking it out. I mean, since you got nothing better to do right now, and we don't need they don't need us to pump Tiger King, you know, clearly, but no. If you haven't checked it out by now, you probably should. It's fairly entertaining, and it's only like 7 episodes too, so you can blow through it pretty quick. Smoke, you been watching anything else other than Tiger King over and over again?
Yeah, we finished up The Office finally, got through the whole thing. Like I said, I'd seen the first, I don't know, 4 or 5 seasons of it maybe. Mm-hmm. After that, it was all pretty much new to me. Beyond that, so that was cool.
It still holds up pretty good. I mean, you know, since it's been a handful of years.
I think so. Yeah, I think it holds up well. Of course, it's not, you know, just the way the storyline unfolds. I never thought of The Office as one of those things where, I mean, now I could. I know I'm familiar with the episodes, I guess, but it's not one of those things where you could just throw it on like any sitcom. You know, it's got storyline to it and everything. So you could come into it like, I don't know, who's this guy? You know, where's Michael, or where's that type of thing where it's just. If you haven't seen the whole thing all the way through, then you might be not where, you know where you're coming in at. So, unlike, you know, classic sitcoms where it's a beginning and ending story per episode. So
yeah, I mean it's harder to pick up on that than it would be like an old episode of Andy Griffith or something where you know there's Andy, Barney, Opie, and Aunt Bee. Here we go. You know.
So I think it is one of those that has, for me personally, has replayability every few, I don't know, so many years or so. I could go back and revisit some of them again, but and I love the show. It's just not one of those that like you were talking about, like Andy Griffith or Sanford and Son or something, where if it's on, I can just watch it instantly and you know, get right into it or whatever.
I mean, there's a handful of shows for me that are like that, but the one that I always think of immediately when you say that, it's like Seinfeld. I mean, I could watch that all the damn time, dude. Like, if it's on, I'm going to watch at least a few minutes of it. Like, oh, yeah, it's that episode, you know, and then move on. But
a little bit of a takeoff on that. Have you ever watched Parks and Rec?
I only see, when I used to work there, it was, I think maybe the first season it started. Do you remember when that show started? It started before 2009, right? Or around 2009? Maybe.
I don't remember.
Give or take, yeah. But I remember that.
I do remember it being on.
I remember that being like a spinoff of The Office, and I was like, man, I want to watch that. And then, like, I think I watched the first couple, and it just didn't grab me, so then I just never really watched it, you know, other than just bits and pieces off and on. I mean, it's always looked good.
I'm the same camp right there with that. As far as when I worked there, I'm pretty sure the first season started then, and I probably saw them as I was working. You know,
yeah, same
bits
thing.
And pieces of those episodes, but I haven't seeked it out beyond that. So.
Same here.
You should give it a try. Like, again, the first season, they're definitely trying to find their footing.
Okay.
You know, it was definitely like they were trying to be, you know, the second version of The Office.
Oh, okay.
But about the time they hit their second season, they hit their stride, and it's good from there on.
Dude, I'll have to check that out, because we were just talking about that. Once we got to that last episode, The Office was kind of like bittersweet. Because like, now what are we gonna do for it? You know, as far as one of those things where The Office, you could just put it on, blow through an episode, 2, maybe 3, depending on what's going on. Sometimes a bunch of things was going on, so we ended up watching 4 or 5 episodes in a row.
Now's as good.
Other times you just might get to next week and then we'll watch another episode, just kind of, it's like one of those comfort type shows,
Now's as good a time as any to start something like that, finally just get around to watching something like that. So I might dive into it. I remember at the time there was supposed to be a spinoff of Dwight Schrute, Rainn Wilson's character.
Oh, yeah. Oh, there was going to be one?
Yeah, because apparently, I think in that last season, if I'm not mistaken, there was kind of a soft pilot for, it was going to be about him on, his farm and all that, and there was, a cast of people, his family or his old girlfriend or something like that. They kind of had an episode that was somewhat of a soft pilot, and then I guess it just never went anywhere, and then it just went away.
Was it a couple of, revisited a couple of old favorites, horror movies, Tombs of the Blind Dead, Spanish horror film from the 70s. It's sort of one of my personal favorites. We watched that since the last show that we did. I think that's about it. I mean, there's probably something else in there I'm forgetting, but that was the main things we watched.
I'll take it back. I have watched a good bit of Daniel Tiger.
And his neighborhood.
In his neighborhood. I just didn't think y'all wanted to hear about.
Yeah. I guess before we go into the background, Will, tell us about, obviously this isn't the first time you've seen it, any of us really, but what's your history with it, I guess, your initial reactions?
When I first saw it, I was a little kid, so I'm going to guess probably somewhere around 10. Mm-hmm. Probably watched it on HBO, and I remember thinking, hey, this is pretty good. Boy, that doesn't hold up. But yeah, I mean, I remember enjoying it and doing the little catchphrases of, any 10-year-old thinks Wolfman has nards is funny. I'm sorry. But yeah, that's my history with it.
Smoke, what about you? What's your history with it and then and now?
I guess when I first heard about it was in Fangoria. I think I started reading Fangoria in 1986. So some article or other on there is where I first read about it or heard about it. But I don't remember it playing in theaters where I'm from, in the town I was from. I don't remember it hitting theaters there. Now, because that could be just because it didn't take off anywhere else at first. It might have been a limited thing, and I know it didn't do well box office wise.
Now, I'll let you continue in a second, but to that, best I could tell, it probably only played wide for about 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Because the first week
that probably explains why I didn't see it here.
Yeah, first week it didn't even crack 2 million, and then I think it played wide one more week, and then it was pretty much gone. So. Yeah, there's probably, you blinked and you missed it, probably. Yeah. If it was playing near you, probably just...
Yeah, if it even played, it was probably just that 1 week, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. And then it just in and out.
So it would have been the Vestron video release, whenever that was, sometime later in 87 or 88, early 88.
Yeah, I think it was in 88 when it came out.
Renting that the first time was, I saw it, and then I loved it. I mean, I knew, like I said, I'd read the article about it, knew it was something I was going to be interested in, and then when I saw it, it was... instantly kind of screamed, of course, Goonies. That's the first thing you kind of think of is Goonies mixed with the Universal Monsters. And for me, that was right up my alley. And actually, because of the horror aspect of it, I guess I even placed this movie higher than I would Goonies, I guess, at the time. So I really, really enjoyed it. Probably watched it, I don't know, 5-6 times back in that era from the 88 to, 92 or so. I had the VHS at one point. Don't know what happened to it, though. And then picked up the 2-disc DVD edition when that came out. And I've seen it probably another 5 times, since I had the DVD.
Myself, I can't tell you how many times I've seen this movie. I would imagine probably the first time I saw it was probably on HBO. It could have been a video rental, possibly. But I would imagine it was probably on HBO, Showtime, Cinemax, one of those at the time. Because I think we had one of those. We didn't have a satellite, one of those descrambled satellite deals. But we had for whatever reason, we had this code, we had cable, right? And there was this code you had to punch in to get the, on your remote to get the pay channel.
Oh, yeah.
And, well, we would put that code in, my parents, they were only paying for HBO or something, right? You'd put that code in and it would give us all the movie channels. And it was like this for a couple of years until I guess finally they, found it out and then they took it away, but. So yeah, any of those, whatever it was playing on at the time, that's probably where I saw it the first time. And then we taped it, and then me and my brother just watched it. It was part of the loop then. God knows how many times I've seen this thing.
When it's something like the AU code or something like that?
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. It was like AU and then like 5 or 6 numbers or something like that, and then your premium channels would click on. But yeah, we taped it and we just watched it ad nauseum. So God knows I've probably seen this movie 24 times, and Lord knows how many times, like just in bits and pieces. So this was definitely
that's
one of
kind of what I did with it. The way I saw a lot of it was I dubbed it, as I did with a lot of those VHSs. We had two or so VHS decks and just connected them up and dubbed it, and that was one. That's
and
that song wasn't a copy guarded.
And I think that was one thing we've talked about. I'm sure we've talked about this before in past episodes. Where like you used to pop in a tape, like Monster Squad's coming on at 10 o'clock, so you'd pop in a tape and then just let it roll for 6 hours or 8 hours or whatever your play was, and then you get up the next day to see what else you taped. It was that kind of deal. So.
And it turns out it was
really good at.
It'd be like the Monster Squad, and then back to the beach, and then all of a sudden, just straight up.
Emmanuel.
Yeah, one of those Emmanuel movies.
Emmanuel in America or something.
But yeah, I mean that.
Felicity. I don't know.
I watched it.
Hypothetically speaking.
Yeah.
Hypothetically. Not that we knew the titles of them or anything.
Never.
We just make that up. It just popped in my head or something.
Let's move it along.
Great hosting.
Yeah. But yeah, so I remember just, and I was probably at the time, give or take, around 8, 9, 10 years old, probably about the same as you, Will. So yeah, this was right in that wheelhouse. And I was a big Goonies fan, and there's some obvious comparisons to this movie, or to those both those movies, you know what I mean? So, and which we'll get into that shortly, I'm sure. But as far as I loved it back then, and I still love it for what it is now. I mean, it's corny, but it serves its purpose, So it's not. Let's put it this way: it ain't meant for nearly 40-year-old Josh. It's meant for 9-year-old Josh. Yeah, exactly. So
I know y'all keep mentioning the Goonies. I have a feeling. When they pitched this, it was like, all right, we've got the Universal monsters. All right, so just hear me out. Goonies meets that. Right. Hold on. I'm not done.
I'm with you now.
Okay, you ready?
Don't lose me.
Well, let's bring a little E.T. little girl into this.
Here's $12 million.
Go.
Now that's definitely probably what the studio that picked it up said. I know that Universal, they pitched it to Universal, and Universal wasn't interested at all in it. So whatever studio had picked it up, I'm sure they're coming hot off the heels of like Goonies and they're hearing about that. Okay, yeah. But then according to the director, his thing was like, okay, it's Universal Monsters and Little Rascals, because he was a fan of Little Rascals or whatever. Which okay, I can concede that. But if it wasn't him, then it was definitely producers and stuff at the distributor saying, amping up that angle of like E.T. and the Goonies and a couple of other movies. Hell, even Ghostbusters, because the trailer is like, you know who to call when you have ghosts, but who do you call when you have monsters?
Yeah.
So there's all kind of angles they were pushing in there with that.
Also, I'll add, since you mentioned that, this movie was called The Monster Squad, like worldwide, and I'm sure it was interpreted in various languages, right? In Germany, it was called Monster Busters. So they went straight for it in Germany.
Straight for it, yeah. Monster Busters, yeah. On another note, though, Ghostbusters was called Ghost Squad. No, kidding. It wasn't. That's not true.
The irony is sweet. That is interesting. One thing I didn't really look at. I mean, I looked at a handful of things, but one thing I didn't really look at was the fact that it's basically the Universal monsters, right? But like they kind of somewhat go out of their way to change them a little bit, and they even renamed one of them. He's not the creature from the Black Lagoon. He's just known as Gillman. Although I don't think they ever say it. I don't think they say, "Hey, look, it's Gillman." But in the credits,
the only time I remember hearing Gillman is in the song.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
Monster Squad rap song.
But in the credits,
but I also thought I heard "Creature from the Black Lagoon" in there.
Maybe, but I do recall them saying the creature a couple of times. I don't remember ever hearing Black Lagoon, and in the credits they call him Gillman. So that's a weird. I'm sure there's got to be some weird legalities there, right? Like about.
Yeah, there definitely is. I did pick up on a little bit of that whole deal with them trying to pitch the movie to Universal. That's what their original plan was. I guess they were in hopes that, or maybe had high hopes that Universal would pick it up and they could just go with those. It wouldn't have mattered. They would have went with the same designs. But since they didn't, they had to change. Definitely had to change Frankenstein. They couldn't have the likeness of Boris Karloff on there because that was copyrighted.
Yeah.
In fact, other companies before them had that same issue, like Hammer Films, when they did their Frankenstein stuff in the 50s, late 50s or whatever, and early 60s. They had to change it up. Couldn't be anything like Boris Karloff because that was a copyrighted image. And apparently, same thing for the Mummy, Karloff's version of the Mummy, and Bela Lugosi's look for Dracula. So yeah, they had to. That's why they're a little bit altered. Stan Winston did all that.
I would think that these characters in general, though, are damned. Maybe not by then. I'm not sure, but by now they got to be like public domain by now, right, or close to it. Because isn't it like 100 years?
Yeah, I forget now as far as the universal look of monsters.
I just mean in the sense of like Dracula, like that's Bram Stoker's Dracula. That's an old ass book. So I mean, like the character itself can probably
do your version of it, but I guess you can't do the likeness.
Yeah,
Universal's likeness.
Yeah. So that's where the difference lies.
You can do your own version of the monster.
Yeah. So you could make your own Frankenstein's monster, Dracula, and all these others, but it can't look exactly like theirs. So maybe that's how they got away with it. It's close enough, close but no cigar kind of thing.
And like you're saying, with that leeway, I forget how many years it is, but back in the silent era, Nosferatu, Murnau was making that. He had to change it because of, at that time, it was still under copyright, and I guess Bram Stoker's estate, his widow or whatever, wasn't allowing it. So he basically just said, okay, well, I'll just call it Nosferatu and use the exact same storyline anyway. So, but later on, of course, by now, I think pretty much anybody can make their own Dracula movie without having to pay any kind of rights.
Yeah, it would be interesting to know, where those characters lie. And of course, I'm sure now this movie was 33 years ago, so the rules that they were playing with have probably changed since, I'm sure.
Yeah.
All right, so this movie was released August 14th, 1987 here in the U.S. by Taft Entertainment Pictures, Keith Barish Productions, and it was distributed by TriStar Pictures. The total runtime for this movie is 1 hour and 19 minutes, so it's quick. It's basically just an overblown average hour-long TV program at this point, like almost combined 2 TV shows together, and here you go. It's rated PG-13, so this does toe a little bit of a fine line between, even for a movie that definitely leans towards kids, and we'll go into that a little bit later. It definitely toes that line between PG-13 and R, with language and some of the things that you see in it.
Yeah, I think it pushes it, right? Pushes that PG-13 pretty good.
Oh yeah, it's definitely PG-13. There's no question about that. This isn't, G or PG. This is definitely PG-13 and damn near an R, in some regards. It is listed on IMDb as an action, comedy, fantasy. Notice horror wasn't in there, but I did see like one description had as one kind of fitted in that horror category, which I would. I mean, just because of the characters that are in it, right?
Yeah, that I actually didn't. I mean, I've looked it up on IMDb, but I didn't pay attention to what genres they classified it as. But that's just weird to me that it hasn't been. Just the fact that it's using Universal's, well, not necessarily just Universal's, but classic monsters.
Yeah, monsters, yeah.
Should put it in the horror category.
Yeah, you would think.
Right away.
I mean, if it's got Dracula and or Frankenstein in it, you would just, all right, it's a horror movie in some regard.
Whether it's comedy or not, or whatever.
But yeah, action, comedy, fantasy is what they listed on IMDb. So the budget for this movie was $12 million, which has to be quite a bit for the time. Like, not Terminator money or something like that, but that's a pretty good little bundle. I mean, even by today's standards, I mean, probably some of your low-budget flicks aren't, some of them probably aren't even getting that. I think
when you mentioned Terminator, too, there's that connection with Stan Winston there in the effects, so I'm sure that was a little chunk of the pie. There was Stan Winston creating all those creature effects.
Yeah.
And, the explosions and things. But definitely was huge for that time, for that little of a movie.
We'll just go back a couple episodes here on the Spook Show. Remember we talked about Leprechaun, right? If I'm not mistaken, I don't have it in front of me, but I think the budget for that was only like $1 million.
Yeah.
And that was in 1993. Well, 1992 because it came out early 93, but that was 1992. So that was 5 years later, give or take here, 5 or 6 years later. And that was made for $1 million, and this thing was made for $12 million. And it only grossed, give or take, about $3.8 million, which is not good by any kind of money-making standards. I'm sure in the time since they've made their money back and then some, but man, I'm sure that was a pretty hard pill.
Definitely a disappointment there. If you're, if you see this movie, you kind of expected, I guess, if you're the filmmakers, that it would do well because it's definitely put together well.
Yeah.
And kind of in that wheelhouse of like you had horror and horror comedies going on at the time, as well as the Goonies and everything going on. So I guess you would assume that it would do well. Definitely didn't, though.
Just for comparison's sake, like we often do here, I'll tell you what was out that particular week. The week that it came out was August 14th to the 16th, so that weekend in 1987. So number one in the box office, Beverly Hills Cop 2, and it was nearing it had to be nearing the end of its run. It had already been out for 13 weeks at that time. Number 2, Dragnet, the one with Dan Aykroyd and
Tom Hanks.
Yep.
Yeah, it is. It's Tom Hanks. So, anyways, number 2 that week was Dragnet. Number 3, The Untouchables. It had been out for a little while too. Number 4, Roxanne, the Steve Martin movie.
Mm-hmm.
Number 5, Stakeout. Number 6, Adventures in Babysitting. Number 7, The Living Daylights. Number 8, and this was in its first week, Can't Buy Me Love. Number 9, which was also in its first week, No Way Out. And number 10, La Bamba. Then I'll just skip down to number 12, Masters of the Universe by Canon Films.
Hell yeah. No.
That was number 12 that week. And it had been out a couple weeks. Number 13 in its first week, Disorderlies. The Fat Boys movie.
Right.
The Fat Boys movie. Number 14, I'll just keep going because this is entertaining to me. RoboCop from Orion Pictures.
There's a connection there. We'll get to that later. But
there's a couple connections there, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Number 15, a fairly comparable movie that week, The Lost Boys. 16, Summer School. 17, Back to the Beach. And then we finally get to the Monster Squad.
We can't blow over Summer School. We've talked about it before. But we can't blow over that without mentioning Chainsaw and Dave.
Yeah. Back to the Beach, which, didn't we mention at some point? It was like that Frankie and Annette weird Pee Wee Herman movie.
Back to the Beach, yeah.
Something
Beach
tells me we've
movies.
mentioned that at some point for some reason. But that was
out.
We
did. It must have been some actor or something.
Maybe it must have been. And finally we get to number 18 that week, Monster Squad. Right after that, re-release of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Full Metal Jacket, another canon movie, Superman 4: The Quest for Peace.
Well, that was a blockbuster.
Yeah. Well, it did better than the Monster Squad. Although it's funny too. Like that movie like made tons more than Monster Squad. But like, which one are you more likely to plug in and watch right now, or is more favorably look back on between those two movies?
Definitely Monster Squad. But I mean, that puts it in perspective there for sure.
I always think those are kind of interesting to see what it was up against that week. But best I can tell, though, it lasted another week, and then it kind of just floated away after that, so it did not do well. So this movie was filmed, best I can tell, it was filmed around October of 1986, so a little less than a year before this. And it was filmed around L.A., like in Burbank and a couple other studios and stuff around Los Angeles. It was directed by Fred Decker. Now, from best I can tell, he's done a handful of things, decent things, but not a lot of things. Considering what he's done, you would have thought that he would have been able to do more. Maybe he just wanted to go on and do other things or something, but like...
I know he wrote more than he's directed.
Yeah, well...
you would think that he would have been handed some more projects.
He directed this. He directed Night of the Creeps.
Yeah, Night of the Creeps was his first movie, right? First feature film.
I believe
That's
so.
a great one that we got to get to at some point soon. On the
I'm
show.
sure. Yeah,
I don't know if either of y'all seen that one before?
Oh, I have. Yeah. It's been a while, but yeah, I've seen it.
I don't remember if I have or not.
We'll have to get that one soon.
He directed an episode of Tales from the Crypt, which, I mean, him and 40 other dudes did that, but still, it's, kind of in the same vein of what we're talking about here. He directed RoboCop 3, which is probably the worst of the three main RoboCop movies, right? But
I think that was his last feature-length film, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
I don't know why.
But he wrote, his bigger claim to fame is he wrote House.
Yeah.
Which I think was kind of the thing that kind of put him on the map, so to speak, a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And him and Shane Black, which we'll get into in a second, they wrote The Predator, the one that came out a couple of years ago.
Yeah, the 2018 one?
The 2018, The Predator, yeah, he wrote that with Shane Black. The same two guys that wrote this movie, Fred Decker and Shane Black. So that's the connecting tissue to The Predator, is Monster Squad. Yep. Now Shane Black, he's very prominent. He directed Iron Man 3. He directed The Predator, from a couple years ago. But he also wrote all 4 Lethal Weapon movies. He wrote The Last Boy Scout, and he wrote Last Action Hero, among many of other movies.
We did a 6 Degrees thing, and then that Last Action Hero has another connection too, right? With Tom Noonan that played the Frankenstein monster, and Monster Squad was the Ripper, I think he was, in Last Action Hero.
Yeah, and that dude's been in
It's
a
probably
ton of stuff too. Like, you know, I'm sure everybody would recognize him, even without the Frankenstein makeup. Trust me, you'd recognize him from other things.
Yeah, he's a great character actor.
Yeah, for sure. It was produced by Keith. There was like 5 or 6 producers, but I'll name 3 because they have some connections to other things. Keith Barish, Barish, could be Barish, whatever. He produced Big Trouble in Little China, The Running Man, and The Serpent and the Rainbow, among many other things. So, you know, fairly recognizable producer. Rob Cohen, who was also the director of Daylight. Remember that Sylvester Stallone movie where they're trapped in like the Lincoln Tunnel or something in New York? Whatever.
Yeah.
He also directed, from what I could tell, I think he was the director of the very first Fast and Furious movie, which there's been 48 of those movies made since then, but I think he was the director of the very first one. He was a producer on this, and he also produced The Witches of Eastwick, The Running Man, and The Serpent and the Rainbow. So there's clearly a connection there between Keith Barish and Rob Cohen. Another producer was Peter Hyams, who directed Stay Tuned. Either of y'all remember that with John Ritter?
Oh yes, John Ritter and the TV channel things or whatever.
Yeah. I think that was one of those movies HBO.
Oh God, I forgot about that movie.
Yep. He directed that, and I think that was one of those movies HBO must have had on a nonstop loop with Weekend at Bernie's because it seems like they used to show it all the time. He directed Time Cop, Sudden Death, so he's clearly got some connection with Jean-Claude Van Damme. But he has directed a couple of horror movies, The Relic and End of Days. Remember that Schwarzenegger movie? It was one of Schwarzenegger's kind of last movies before he became the governor and kind of went away for a while. So this movie stars Andre Gower as Sean. He's kind of the leader of the Monster Squad, the main kid. You would really only know him from this. He's been in a ton of TV shows from the 80s and 90s. And then, like I mentioned earlier, he directed and produced that documentary about this called Wolfman's Got Nards. We should keep account of how many times we're going to say the phrase Wolfman's Got Nards in this episode. That's a running count for you, Will. Get on it.
This episode of the All American Spook Show broadcast is brought to you by the Wolfman's Nards.
the Nard Association of America, finding out whether Wolfmen have them from east to west.
Nard dog.
And there's the Office connection.
Nard dog. Robbie Kiger as Patrick. That's kind of like his main friend. You know, kind of the kid has always got the sunglasses on the top of his head. Kind of, you know.
Oh yeah.
Kind of too cool for school. Kind of wisecracking kid. Once again, the comparisons to the Goonies. I think you know, like you got the main kid Sean, who's basically like the main kid in Goonies, right? You got this kid Patrick, who's like the Corey Feldman character in Goonies, and then there's other comparisons as we go along, but it's hilarious. Basically, it would
have been really funny if they had taken the real guy's name from the Goonies and just made that the character's name.
Yeah, might as well have. I mean, because there's so many direct correlations. It's nuts. But
it's Nards? No,
it's Nards, man.
Street Nards.
But really, other than this, the only other thing you'd remember Robbie Kiger from would be Children of the Corn. I think he played Job in that. Stephen Mocht as Dell / Sean's dad. So he's the main kid's dad, and he's like the police detective. You would remember him from 1,000 television shows from like the 70s, 80s, and 90s. I mean, even today. I mean, like this dude's still active today, and he's been in a ton of stuff. But as far as horror-wise, he was in Nightwing. He was in Graveyard Shift, in Trancers 3, 4, and 5. That well-known series of Trancers movies. Duncan Reiger, I guess is how you say his name, Rhaegar. But he plays Count Dracula. You would recall him from, once again, a ton of TV shows and stuff through the 80s and 90s. He was in a movie called The Banker, Blood Surf, Flying Virus. So plenty of horror connections there with him. But by far, I'd say this is his most recognizable role. And like you just mentioned, Smoke, Tom Noonan as Frankenstein's monster. Has been in a ton of stuff, but he was also in the movie Wolfman, FX, Manhunter, RoboCop 2, Last Action Hero, like you mentioned earlier. So tons of stuff for him, and a ton of TV shows as well.
And he's even in some of those newer, I guess you call them, the new school of horror stuff that are kind of retro throwback movies, like House of the Devil, Ty West. I think he was in that one. There's another one that Ty West directed that was like an omnibus type anthology movie. That's escaping me right now, but he was in that one too.
Yeah, he was also in that show. I don't know if either of you guys watched it. It was on AMC a few years ago called Hell on Wheels. It was like a It was a western, but it was kind of telling the story of how they built the railroad across the
Oh
the
yeah,
nation.
I didn't see it, but I remember.
Yeah, he was in that. He was really good in that too. But like, that's a really good show. That's one if you want to go binge watch something, I recommend it. It was really good.
Yeah, Hell on Wheels. Yeah.
Yeah. It also stars Brent Challam as Horace. You'd really only know him from this and a couple of TV shows, but he died in December of 1997 at age 22 from like complications of pneumonia. Apparently he was going to like law school or something like that, so he hadn't really done anything in a while, as far as movies and TV shows and stuff. But yeah,
one thing I do remember him from. Well, actually, I don't remember him from this because he wasn't even credited in it. But I remember the name of the, if you call it movie within a movie. But do you remember the comedy Moving Violations? From, I think 1985.
Sounds familiar.
One of those, kind of like one of those, just one of those police academies sort of slapstick type comedies that were going on in the 80s, and where I forget, the people get, for some reason, they get pulled over and they have to go to like a driving school type of thing. What do you call that when you got to get to try and get it knocked off your record, whatever that thing is.
Yeah.
You get a ticket and you got to go to this move. Well, there was the Moving Violations thing or whatever. So they had to watch this short film called, and they used to play these, I remember, in high school and stuff. But the movie within the movie thing was called Blood Flows Red on the Highway. And it was like one of those highway safety movies, like against drunk driving or reckless driving or whatever. And there was this group of kids walking across a crosswalk. And it shows this car speeding down the highway. And then, the kids are walking, and the camera freezes on close up, and it's Brent, looking just like he did in Monster Squad, because it was about 1 year before that or 2 years before that movie. And he's the one that gets hit by the car in it.
Wow.
So, blood flows red on the highway, and then there's like a whole bunch of blood on the windshield of the car, and it was done as a slapstick, type comedy thing. But yeah, he was in that. I don't even think he was credited for it.
Fuck you, Horace.
I'm sorry, I only recognized him as Hey Fat Kid.
Yeah, Fat Kid. Even his friends call him Fat Kid. What the fuck? Hey, it's Fat Kid.
My name's Horace. No, literally everybody calls you the Fat Kid. I was just doing what everybody else was.
Yeah.
Like, you can look back at the bullies in this and be like, what? They were doing what everybody else was doing.
Yeah. And also, there's a couple of lines where they drop the old F word, and I'm not talking about fuck, where they call them, EJ and the other kid that are bullying Horace, they call him a faggot.
Yeah. Yeah.
A couple of times I said, whoa.
That's one of those issues of, it's the political correctness nowadays, but back then it was in
all kind
of comedies, dramas, whatever. It was just what it was.
Yeah, believe me, I can't say I didn't sling it back in the day too,
Yeah.
That was just, something you're not necessarily proud of, but that was just kind of that was a cut down back in the day, so to speak. That was just the way it was back in those days, and clearly this is proven in this movie right there.
Well, kind of along the same lines, the little kid that ends up writing the letter to the military.
Yeah.
He's running around the entire movie with a rebel hat on.
I didn't even really notice that. You mean like he's got like the rebel,
yeah, like the rebel flag. Oh, not a rebel flag hat, but like the rebel soldier hat.
The Confederate infantry.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I didn't really think too much about it, but that's what's wrong with America. We don't think about it enough.
I know Fred Decker, in one of the interviews I saw of him, he said something like he gets flack from that type of stuff as far as the political correct angle or whatever. But I mean, you really can't give a movie flack like that comes from the 80s, because I mean all of them had it in there, so it's just part of the
I don't think
part of the day.
Yeah, was it right? No, it wasn't right, but I mean it just was what it was. I mean it's like they always say, you can't go back and erase everything.
Yeah.
You just say, look, like if we were making this today, we wouldn't have done it. End of story,
Unless you're Steven Spielberg, then you can go back and erase things like the guns that the cops are holding on the kids as they fly over.
Yeah.
Or George Lucas.
Or George Lucas. Or,
Go back and change things that don't need to be changed. Whatever.
Yeah.
But so, yeah, unfortunately, Brent Challam is no longer with us. He passed away back in 97. So I thought that was kind of crazy. Like when you're watching, you think like, man, I haven't seen like, you think like you try to think of like, I wonder what these guys grew up to be, or if they were doing anything, and then you think like, man, I don't ever remember seeing that kid in anything else, and that's pretty much why. Like he grew up and went to school and everything, and then unfortunately died at a very young age. So rest in peace to Brent Challam, old Horace. Nobody's calling you fat kid up in heaven, brother.
Meanwhile, he's looking down upon us. And somebody's beside him. Hey, fat kid, look at this.
Oh,
they're talking about you.
Even up here. Anyways, it also stars Ryan Lambert as Rudy. He's kind of the Fonz kind of kid of the group. Like, I also thought the ages of these kids were kind of weird, right? Like, they're all supposed, like, there's clearly an elementary school at the beginning of it, like, because it says, like, blah, blah, elementary school on the building. But these kids act way older than any kid that would possibly be in elementary school. Meanwhile, this kid they say he's from junior high, Rudy, is hanging out with these little kids, like, and he has no issue with it. Like, he's supposed to be the cool kid, but he's hanging around with these fucking elementary school kids.
Yeah, he's supposed to be the cool kid, but he's trying to get into the Monster Squad club, you know, in their treehouse and everything.
Yeah, and he's trying to get with a high school girl, which that part makes sense, but everything else doesn't, right? I mean, but yeah, you basically probably only remember him from this and Kids Incorporated. He was like in almost every episode of Kids Incorporated, if you recall that show. It stars Ashley Bank as Phoebe. That's the little girl. You would really only remember from this and a handful of TV shows. I mean, it sounds like she pretty much left the business sometime in the 90s or early 2000s or something. Like, she hasn't been in much other than like a good handful of TV shows. Probably one of the more well-known character actresses, I'd say, of the 80s and 90s. Is in this as Emily and Sean's mom. It's Mary Ellen Trainor, which is, here's your Goonies connection. Remember, she was the mom in Goonies.
Yep.
And she's the mom in this one. She was also in all 4 Lethal Weapon movies. Remember, she was kind of like the psychiatrist that Mel Gibson's character kept fucking with.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah, that's her. She was in a number of other things. She was in Action Jackson, the first Die Hard. Unfortunately, she passed away in May of 2015 at the age of 62. I didn't see a cause or anything, but she's no longer with us either. It also stars Leonardo Cimino as Scary German Guy, and that's how he's listed. They never give this dude a name. Yeah. In the credits and everything, he's just Scary German Guy, which is hilarious because Leonardo Cimino is from Italy. I'm sorry, he's Italian.
From Italian.
He's from Italian. Yeah, what do you do here? But the dude has been in a...
all of a sudden goes to New York.
Yeah, what the fuck, eh?
Italy, my way.
Except I'm Scary German Guy. Leave me the fuck alone here.
Get out of here.
Yeah, the fuck off.
I'm gonna scare. He just didn't talk that a dumb. Otherwise, I'm gonna scare German guy.
Try this pizza sauce. I'm sorry. This is racist.
You want some of these nards or what?
You know, these Italian nards here, motherfucker.
We've just lost the entire Italian, 2 people in Italy that listen to us. Yeah,
you don't know how it was growing up in Germany, all right? You'd know him from a handful of things. He's literally been in like every fucking television show since like the late 50s. He was in Amityville 2, The Possession. He was in Dune, The Seventh Sign, one of Willie's favorite movies, Hudson Hawk.
Oh yeah.
Unfortunately, once again, he passed away in March of 2012 at the age of 94. So he had a long, fruitful career there. It stars John Grice. I'm not exactly. It's Gries. So it's either Grease or Grice as Desperate Man. Now they don't give the dude a name. He's just Desperate Man. But he's the Wolfman.
I mean, a lot of things. But yeah.
Yeah, but he's the dude that turns into the Wolfman. But I think the Wolfman was played by a different dude. I don't think it was him in the Wolfman outfit.
In the creature suit?
Yeah. But he's been in a handful of things. But you would mostly know him as Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah, that's right.
He was also in Terror Vision, Fright Night 2, and remember that Martin Lawrence show, Martin? He was in a bunch of episodes of that. I kind of remember him from that, but I can't quite place what he was in Martin. But he was like 50, 60-something episodes of that, so he must have been somewhat of a big deal, and I'm just not remembering it. But I used to love that show back in the day. And it also stars Stan Shaw as Detective Sapir. He's Sean's dad's detective partner. You would know him from Rocky, like 1,000 television shows. He was in Harlem Nights. Once again, another connection to that movie Daylight, the Stallone movie. He was in that. And more recently, as far as horror related, he was in Jeepers Creepers 3. So yeah, he's one of the more well-known character actors of the last 30 years for sure. And last but not least is Jason Hervey as EJ. He's kind of the shithead that picks on Horace and all that a couple times in the movie.
Wonder Years.
Yeah, you would mostly know him as the Big Brother in Wonder Years. He's been in a handful of other things, and apparently he's produced like 40-something random TV shows and stuff like that. But yeah, that's mostly what you would know him from, is being the asshole kid from everything he played in.
Yeah, he was always a punk ass.
Yeah, he had like punk ass down to an art, I guess, back in the back in the 80s and 90s. So that was his thing. So I mean, that's really about all I have. Did you guys dig up anything else you wanted to talk about before we get into it? Or?
Well, I had one thing. Do y'all remember a live action TV series called The Monster Squad from like I think it was like 76, 77 when it aired?
No, that'd be a bit before my time.
I'm an old ass mother.
Yeah. No, I mean, some of those things, even from the 70s, I might have caught in reruns or something. So if it didn't play reruns,
I don't remember that one rerunning too much. I mean, it did rerun back in the late 70s because I saw it. I mean, I probably saw it when it first aired because I was old enough, and I was probably 3 or 4 when it first aired. But it probably aired in a little syndication around the next couple of Saturday morning seasons or whatever. But it was it's called The Monster Squad, and it was Fred Grandy played like a night watchman at a wax museum. He was the guy that played Gopher later on in Love Boat, Fred Grandy. But in Monster Squad, he was a night watchman, and he was also like a budding crime detective type, and he built this crime computer that he hid inside the wax museum. And for some reason, like the sound waves from the crime computer reanimated these wax figures of Dracula and Frankenstein's monster and Wolfman. And then for some reason or other, they become superheroes, and like the Fred Grandy's character, the Night Watchman, is like his base of operations is the crime computer, and he sends them out in the monster van to sends them on missions to fight bad guys and stuff. It's basically kind of like a sort of like a 60s Batman type of thing. Has absolutely nothing to do with this movie, except that it was called The Monster Squad. It actually has Frankenstein's monster, Dracula, and Wolfman in it. Doesn't have the mummy or the creature, but it had them. So I don't know. I've never heard whether Fred Decker had mentioned ever seeing it or not, but it's just strange coincidence that it's also called The Monster Squad and has those classic monsters in it. But plot-wise, has nothing to do with this movie.
I've never seen it, but it sounds fucking awesome.
Yeah, it was. And I need to track it down on DVD. It's awesomely bad, just like the 60s Batman series. It's fun. It was fun.
Surely that's got to be on one of those like random streamers that, like, when you have a Roku stick and you can download these random fucking like streaming platforms that do shit for free with ads and stuff. Surely it's got to be on one of those.
Yeah, it's got to be. I think it did have a DVD release at some point back, who knows when. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's got to be on some streaming service.
Probably in the DVD heyday of the early 2000s, where everything was getting put to DVD. Yeah. Like from 1998, 99 up until 2010 or so. That give or take.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff that was put out on those first generation DVDs that still hasn't been re-released yet. There's a lot of shit that hadn't even been released on DVD period yet.
Yeah, because a lot of that early DVD stuff was just like VHS dubs and stuff, right? So it's just, here you go.
Pretty much.
Here's a copy of it.
Whatever the early system of remastering was, of course, it's not as high tech as it is now as far as cleaning up these prints.
So you'd be hard pressed to find some company that's going to spend a ton of dough remastering the Monster Squad TV show for Blu-ray or something.
Somebody out there needs to do it, though. The same way they need to do that live action Ghostbusters thing. There was a Filmation animated Ghostbusters, but there was also a live action Ghostbusters that I think the Filmation animated one kind of took off on. Huh. That was also a Saturday morning 70s. There's a whole plethora of 70s Saturday morning stuff that hadn't really been touched yet, at least not in wide release on DVD.
During the mid to late 80s boom of calling everything blank busters.
Yes.
Liam Neeson, from Taken, Star Wars, all that good stuff, was paid for a bit part, but it never got shot for this movie. Dustin Diamond had a small role in this movie that ended up getting cut.
I could definitely see that.
And then this one I just thought was kind of odd. In 2006, Wizard Magazine made a list of the 100 greatest villains of all time. Dracula made the list from this movie.
Huh. That particular version of Dracula.
That particular version over all other Draculas.
And this was This was a top 100?
Yeah.
No, I don't know about that. I mean, I guess maybe if I'm doing a 100 and I'm scratching for the last few, okay, maybe. But that's the best Dracula. Fuck you. No.
Yeah, you might not think it's Bela Lugosi, but then there you got Christopher Lee that would be in contention. I would think way before.
I'm not saying
that he didn't do a bad job as Dracula.
Yeah, he did a good job. It's just
He's not top.
That's a stretch. That's why Wizard isn't around anymore. That and many other things.
Yeah, there's probably a handful of people like, what's Wizard?
Yeah, Wizard, what the fuck is that? I did notice one thing when I didn't watch this on I have the DVD, right? I didn't watch the movie on the DVD, but I did plug it in to watch some of the extras or whatever. Now, the deleted scenes, a lot of the deleted scenes that were on there were like more scenes with the mom, Mary Ellen Trainor's character. You remember there's a scene in there somewhere where it's during that time when Dracula goes to their house and then blows up the clubhouse.
Blows up the
Now, if you were paying attention when they went back in the house and she's coming out like, what the fuck was that? And then she comes down.
Yeah.
There's some suitcases sitting there. Do you remember seeing the suitcases sitting there on the floor?
I didn't even really. I don't even know. I
actually noticed it before I watched the deleted scene. I noticed it. I'm like, huh. It must be. Remember, there was like this tension between them, right? Like they were fighting or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, there's a deleted scene where basically shows her like packing her bags and she's ready to leave. They cut that out, but they left the scene in the final cut of the suitcases sitting on the floor. So there's suitcases there with no explanation. You just kind of have to infer if you even pay attention to it at all. But apparently there is a deleted scene of her like packing her shit and like, I'm leaving, and that's when it happened. But there was a couple.
I did see something saying that they chopped out I think it was 13 minutes out of this movie just because
just to make it even more fast paced to
make it an hour and a half. Like the people that I guess the producers didn't want it over an hour and a half.
Yeah, now there's some explanation in terms of at least one deleted scene on there that apparently they don't know where the hell, at least at the time of them making this in 2007. They might have found it since, I don't know. But as of that time when they made that DVD set, they lost the deleted scene where apparently it was a longer scene, the whole fight at the beginning between Dracula and Van Helsing, the whole thing at the beginning. Apparently that was going to be much longer. More explanation and this and that. Remember, it just kind of ended.
Yeah.
It just kind of came, and we'll go into that in a second. But, apparently there was a longer cut, a longer vision of that scene that they just cut down for time, I guess, and then they lost it. So that's not, that scene, at least on that DVD set, is not even on there. They just explained what it was. And then, the deleted scenes that they had were supplied by Fred Decker. I guess he had his hands on some of the deleted scenes. But most of the ones on there were just really just useless fluff kind of stuff, like maybe a couple different angles on remember there was a scene where the mom and the dad are fighting and he's watching them and they're by a fireplace fighting, arguing or whatever. There's a different angle cut of that and some other shit.
3 minutes of the one kid talking about Wolfman nards.
Yeah. Nothing but nard talk. The only one that was kind of funny was apparently now, getting ahead of ourselves. Once again, we forgot to mention we are a spoiler podcast, so if you haven't watched the movie, hit pause, go watch it, and come back. But later on in the movie, when Gilman dies, the creature or whatever, they wanted him to die, his head. They wanted his head to go to the side when he died, and they wanted live fish to fall out of his mouth, he had just ate a bunch of fish, and then they were, falling out of his mouth. Apparently they couldn't get the gag to work right, but on the deleted scenes, there's 6 different cuts of them trying to get these damn fish to come out of this damn thing's mouth, and it just looks stupid. It's just they literally just toss some minnows on the ground, and he kind of turns his head they're trying to come out. It's kind of funny, but it's just clearly it was.
Yeah, I can see that practical. I could see that in the script. It's what would be a good idea,
Yeah, exactly.
Come out his mouth when he dies, and it sounds great in theory.
Yeah, but trying to actually do it, this is dumb as rocks. This movie's dumb enough. Let's not dumb it down even more by. But yeah, that's pretty much all the deleted scenes where I figured I'd add that in before we got into it. But it would have been interesting to see the longer cut of the beginning. To see more of the Van Helsing stuff there.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
It's time to refresh. For your convenience, we have an attractive refreshment stand with a parade of items to tempt your taste. Hot buttered popcorn, golden good and fresh from the popper. Your favorite candies, wholesome and rich and full of flavor. Ice cream and other good things to eat. Plus, ice-cold Coca-Cola. So bright, so bracing, with a taste and tingle all its own.
All right, so the movie begins with the screen crawl. It says, 100 years before this story begins, it was a time of darkness in Transylvania. a time when Dr. Abraham von Helsing and a small band of freedom fighters conspired to rid the world of vampires and monsters and to save mankind from the forces of eternal evil. They blew it. I remember watching that as a kid. I'm like, reading this like, man, this is going to be some serious... This movie looks awesome. You know what? They blew it.
And then you got that little bit of little bit of gap of black before they blew it comes up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and then it's funny, like the very next shot I think is like a shot of the castle.
Yeah, like it was
really
the title.
Doesn't work.
It's kind of the title screen where it says, I think, the Monster Squad and whatever production, and then you see a graveyard, and then it kind of pans over to the castle.
Yeah, and I know they used to do that, and I'm sure that in some ways they still do. It's like, here's a little bit of like live scene and make it look like it's real, and then here's a drawing in the background.
Yeah, it's like a cutout.
Oh my God, it looks so bad.
Yeah, that was definitely a thing in the '80s. That whole in the matte drawings, and you knew when you were watching, say, somebody like Lucasfilm, doing a matte drawing versus whoever's doing a matte drawing
versus TriStar Pictures trying to do it in Monster Squad.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could definitely tell for sure in that little thing. But then
the old ones, the old Universal movies, which I know is what they were taking off on, that intro scene and everything is kind of playing into the way a lot of the old Universal movies would open up.
Yeah, but
they had a lot going for them then with black and white and the lighting and everything.
Yeah, 1938, you could get away with that.
Yeah.
1987, man, standards were a little up.
Well, and I think this movie would have went over, I think, a little bit better if it would have been in black and white.
Yes, well, it would have gave a different vibe to it for sure. The mood would have. I think Wolfman's Got Nards still holds, whether it's in black and white or not. But
well, look, some things are evergreen.
Yeah. I'm sure that's what they were going for. If someone were to view this in black and white, would the joke still get over? Yes. They blew it. So then you go into the castle and you see him transform, like you see a bat and then him transform into Dracula, Then you see Van Helsing and like his mob, they roll in and they come into the they bust in, they just blow the fucking like door open and they kill one of the brides, like she's standing there like eating a possum or something like that. They kill her. And then you see the amulet, and then they bring in a girl to do like the chant, like reading from the book. And then the dead start rising from the ground, like they're just popping up everywhere, like these zombie, well, not zombies, but these. Well, I guess they would be. I mean, right, whatever. These reanimated corpses,
living dead.
Yeah, the living dead, whatever, start popping up out of the ground, like, which I thought that was kind of a cool effect, right? Like they didn't look too bad. Especially for the times, right? Yeah. Then a black hole opens up, which, as you eventually learn, it's like a hole to limbo. Limbo itself. It opens up and like sucks them all in, and then it just clicks. But I think the screen goes black, and this is present day. Then you're outside of an elementary school, and this is where you're introduced to the two main characters, Sean and Patrick. They're with the principal. They've gotten in trouble over drawing some pictures.
Hey, hold on. Let me go back for a second. Aren't possums like a North America thing? Do they have possums?
Do they have
in Europe?
Well, it's Transylvania. Well, yeah, they do say it's Transylvania, like in the first crawl, right? They're talking about in Transylvania.
Yeah,
Transylvania. Okay, so you set the setting of Transylvania. I don't know if they have possums in Transylvania. Right?
Yeah,
I guess I don't
know.
know.
Possums were like a North America, South America thing.
Maybe I really don't. I've never given much thought to the migration of possums, but you might be right.
If that's the case, they definitely didn't give thought to it.
Yeah. Fuck it, we need her to eat something. So, possum.
I saw one on the road way back.
It's whatever animals for movies are us had that day. Like, we got 3 possums. All right, well, we really wanted some rats, but okay. Rats would have definitely worked better there, in my opinion, with the setting, but whatever. Because I thought, too, like, you see them walking around, like, fuck, those are big-ass rats. Wait a minute, ain't rats, that's fucking possums. Why do they have possums?
Now, I don't know if they were trying to infer that's what it was. Like these big, large rats.
Yeah. Instead of getting some big-ass wolf rats, they got possums. And,
all right, I just looked it up. They're marsupials from Australia and New Guinea.
I mean, anything's possible, right? So, they move these things around from country to country. They need them for, Transylvania castles and to eat kudzu or something. I don't know. So, you're introduced to Sean and Patrick there. They're in trouble for, like, drawing some monster pictures for their monster club or whatever. And then the overbearing principal, is like telling them to knock it off. Then you're introduced to Fat Kid, Horace, EJ and Derek, who are the two bullies, they're messing around with him, and that's what they call him some unsavory names, and then they like smack the Snickers out of his hand and then stomp on it, and then Rudy comes rolling in and strikes a match on his shoe. And then he light up a cigarette or something, like he's
yeah. He comes like sliding in on his very uncool banana seat bike.
Yeah.
I had a banana seat bike one time. It's not a cool thing.
Yeah, it's not cool, Rudy. Knock it off.
Not cool.
Smoke, that was something with you. Banana bikes were awesome.
They were different.
Hey,
man.
I made sure I had the cards in the spokes.
Yeah, at least it made a noise.
that Babe Ruth card. Anyway.
Yeah. That Pete Rose rookie that I stuck in the spokes of the.
This thing ain't gonna be worth nothing.
Yeah. I didn't think it meant anything. I stuck it in there for noise. I wanted to be cool. Had a motorcycle. So then Rudy rolls in and he's too cool for school, and he makes EJ eat the Snickers off the ground. So that was everybody's scared of him kind of thing. Then Sean and Patrick are walking down the road and they're arguing over Wolf Dork.
Wolf Dork? Oh yeah.
They really got a thing for the wolf genitalia. Clearly,
that's true. Yeah, this
is a running theme here. And then you're introduced to Phoebe.
Patrick. He's got his. I had to take the moment to mention his fucking awesome skateboard there on a Vision skateboard that he is holding now. I didn't have that one. I always wanted the Psycho stick, but I never could get it. But I thought that was pretty cool. He's got a Vision Street Ghost, I think, board. Probably worth some shit now.
I'm sure. For you, the listeners of the All-American Spookshow podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their services. I found a kind of a cool little article that kind of compares, if you like this movie or show or whatever, you might like this audiobook. So I figured I'd list off a few of those if you wanted to try to find something that might interest you, and this might help a little bit. If you liked The Haunting of Hill House, remember the series from Netflix that came out last year or whatever? There's a book by Tananarive Due. What a weird name, but it's called The Good House. Apparently it compares to The Haunting of Hill House. If you liked Hereditary, which was a really good horror film from a couple years ago, you may like a book by Paul Tremblay called A Head Full of Ghosts. That's on Audible. If you like The Exorcist, which I'm sure if you're listening to this, you probably like The Exorcist, there's a book by Shirley Barrett called The Bus on Thursday. If you liked Get Out, which was really good from a few years ago from Jordan Peele, there's a book by Victor Laval called The Ballad of Black Tom. There's a handful of others on here. I'll name one more. If you like The Witch, which that was really good from a handful of years back, you may like a book by Anne Rice called The Witching Hour, which I guess compares fairly to that. So that's just a handful of cool, books that you can find on Audible. And if you'd like to do that, you can download your free audiobook today by going to audibletrial.com/spookshow. Again, that's audibletrial.com/spookshow for your free audiobook.
Now, I was really hoping that the name of the book from the one recommended from Get Out was Get In.
If you like Get Out, then Get In.
Go in?
Get all up in. Them wolf nards.
Wolf nards and getting off.
Yeah, what the?
I'm in up to my wolf nards. No.
So yeah, anyways, back to what we were saying.
Wolf nards roll deep.
So Sean and Patrick are arguing about Wolf Dork, and then you're introduced to Sean's little sister Phoebe, and they pass by this creepy looking kind of house with a grown up front yard and everything, and they say it's the house of the scary German guy, and you see the dude like peeking out of the curtain, and you're kind of leering at him, so they're kind of spooked by the dude, and they take off running. Then you see the plane, the cargo plane scene, where the two pilots are like, I never saw myself flying a plane with a bunch of dead stiffs. Yeah, well, at least they don't ask for peanuts. Yuck, yuck, yuck. And then they hear a noise. And then the pilot goes back, and Dracula's back there. And then, he opens up the hatch, and, Dracula's floating over the hatch, and then turns into a bat and flies away. But then apparently...
Now, at this point, the box never falls out, right?
I didn't see any boxes, right, fall out. But apparently, the thing opens, he floats there, turns into a bat and flies away is all I remember seeing. Then all of a sudden, it shows a pond with like some coffins dropping down into yeah. So maybe the guy's like up there, they just didn't show it, but the guy's like, fuck this, and just starts kicking the coffins out. I don't know.
No, get out.
Or did they
We're gonna empty it.
cut it or something, you know, like for time? Like, okay, we don't need to show him like taking this and unhardising this and unhardising that and throwing them out. So we'll just like deal with the non-continuity. You know?
And also to jump ahead a little bit in the movie, right? So I'm thinking this whole time, like, what's the connection to this little town that they're in, right? Why the fuck would Dracula want to go there? Well, as it turns out, the amulet is there in some random old house on the other side of town. And Dracula, I guess, is drawn to where this is, right? Like, a lot of it, just, that doesn't make sense. Like, it doesn't jive about how he got there, right? Like, what are the odds that...
why the amulet's even in this town, you know? That's...
Well, yeah, like, this random town, this is where, like... Because they say there's some throwaway line of, like, Van Helsing's followers thought they were hiding it from me here. So, like, what are the odds that, like, you know, from 100 years ago, some people from Transylvania bring it to this small town USA and hide it in this creepy ass house out in a bog somewhere? That's number one. Number two, he's on this cargo plane, and then like they kind of accidentally drop him there, right? How did they know to accidentally drop Dracula there? Like, it just so happens when they're flying over this town that they make a noise that causes the dude that opens the hatch and he falls out in the coffins and all that stuff in the right spot where the amulet is.
Well, hey, I know we're getting a little bit ahead here too, but we're talking also about the same the same guy. He's like, you know, Dracula has a cane where he pulls these electrodes out.
Yeah.
That's like
I was gonna mention the jumper cable cane of Dracula.
I mean, couldn't we all use that?
Of course,
yes, we could.
If you ever need to revive your Frankenstein, have this nice jumper cable cane
or a car.
Yeah. Yeah, but you'd probably die when you held it up and catch the lightning. So I mean, that's a little. That's a stretch.
Like all that stuff is, you know, kind of like crazy. But the one that jumped out to me was he sent Frankenstein to go find the kids.
Yeah.
How the hell did he know the kids had the fucking book?
Yeah. Yeah, because then there's just this throwaway thing like where Sean comes into like he sees his mom and dad arguing or whatever, and then he sees a message wrote on the little whiteboard from I'm assuming his mom, like, oh, a doctor or a Mr. Is Dracula spelled backwards, whatever the hell his name was.
Alucard.
Yeah, Alucard. Mr. Alucard had called for you. I guess he's from school? ?
And then she wrote down what did she wrote down? About the Van Halen book.
Yeah,
if you look at that,
yeah,
it says Van Halen. Right?
That Van Halen book, possibly money. So yeah, anyways, so that whole thing with the cargo plane happens, and they fall into a pond. Then there's a scene where they're giving Rudy the monster test to let him into the club, and I guess, you know, yeah, he passes it, they let him in. Then his mom, Sean's mom, when he comes back home, gives him the Van Helsing book. She found it, like, what did she just find it, like a random yard sale or some shit like that? Like, here you go. It's the
I thought you might like this.
Yeah, it's the fucking diary of Abraham Van Helsing.
It's not in the museum. No, it's in the yard sale.
No, it's just randomly this mom that knows nothing about this just happened to find it and thought you'd find it interesting, and it's all in German.
And it showed up at just the right time.
Yeah. All well timed, like Dracula falling out of the plane in the right city, and this kid finding the book and everything.
Bunch of happy circumstances. That's all.
Maybe they just explain it off as magic, you know. How did all these things happen, Fred Decker? Fuck off. Magic, I don't know.
$10 million, that's how.
Yeah, $12 million budget. Now beat it. So then it shows Dracula on this overlook, like looking at the entire city. Which you ever notice in a lot of '80s movies, there's always an overlook somewhere. Yeah. You know, where like they get like a clear view of the whole city. Like I don't know, like where are these towns at? Like
I know it's just like in E.T. Right? There's a scene in E.T. I think there's overlooking. There's a lot. I was just watching some other movie that I can't even remember the name of.
I'm telling you.
And when they came up over the top of the hill and looked down at the city, I'm like, that's that scene from.
Yeah, I'm telling you, dude. Like now that I've pointed it out, you watch like almost every other movie you watch from the '80s is gonna have an overlook shot. Like, they're in a car somewhere in this overlook, and you can see the whole city, like plain as day, right out in front of them. But here's Dracula in this overlook spot, and then he says, "Let it begin," and then you know, lightning and thunder and everything.
And that's
a cool little effect with the X-ray look effect where you see a skull in the flash of the lightning.
No, that wasn't an X-ray look. They just put up a skeleton with eyes.
There's just straight up like 5 frames of a skeleton.
Yeah, that's all that was.
Yeah. Ah! I just remember it kind of scared me when I was a kid, so that's all that matters. Like, "Boo!"
Yeah, oh yeah.
Reminiscent of the Large Marge scene in
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, that's far more terrifying. I remember. Side note: I remember reading an article about how like that traumatized like a whole generation of kids. The Large Marge scene from Pee Wee's Big Adventure. So, anyways, so it's established that Sean's dad is a cop, and he gets a call to, like, come down there, and clearly there's some issue between the mom and the dad. Like, you know, I guess she doesn't want him to work. I really don't know what the fucking beef is. Like, she doesn't want him to do his job, and he's like, look, you know what you got? You got the whole package. You knew I was a cop. You know, that old horse shit storyline is going on. So then, like, they cut to the station when the guy's calling him to come down, and there's a guy in there going nuts, like, I'm a werewolf, lock me up. And he starts beating the shit out of all the cops, takes one of their guns and shoots it in the air. Lock me up, and then then the dude comes in and like shoots him like 2 or 3 times, so the guy's dead, right? Then it cuts to them like the 2 detectives down at the museum, which this small ass town has a museum with a mummy in it, right? Like they don't really establish how big this town is. Like it's a big little town. I don't know what the hell, but it's got a museum in it with Egyptian mummies.
It also has a Wolfman and a mummy in the same town. The creature in the lake.
These coincidences are just astounding.
Van Helsing's diary, the amulet, damn everything.
Yeah. The perfect timing from the cargo pilot. I mean, just all of it. So yeah, there's a missing mummy at the museum. They're like, what the fuck? And then the ambulance is driving away with the guy that lost his shit that they had to shoot at the police station. He turns into the Wolfman, and then so the ambulance driver is now dead. Then you see Wolfman and the mummy, who came out of the museum. They join Dracula in the woods, and then they go to this pond, and then Gilman comes up from the pond, lifting up a coffin or a crate, and then they open it up, and Frankenstein's monster's in there. And then this is when they use the jumper cable cane. The cane that Dracula has just happens to have these little diodes that he pulls out, connects to Frankenstein's little bolts in his neck, holds it up to the sky, lightning on cue, hits the cane, and brings Frankenstein back to life.
Now, what he really should have said there when he threw it up in the air is, by the power of Grayskull.
Let it begin. Send more cops. So this is when, like we said, the whiteboard scene with Mr. Alucard has called, and then he's like, Alucard. Like, and then that's the other thing. Like, why would you immediately try to decipher the guy's name, right? Like,
just a little thing I happen to do.
Wouldn't you just be like, oh, Mr. Alucard called. That's weird. Oh, well, moving on. No, he's like, Alucard, eh? And then deciphers it and realizes it's Dracula spelled backwards.
And this movie, I know, is not the first to do that. I can't remember some of the other, but there's been a few other movies out there that have used Dracula's name backwards as a cover-up for him.
Well, apparently,
there's a movie called Alucarda, which has nothing to do with Dracula, but actually has to do with sort of a cult, satanic European horror movie or whatever. Why they called it Alucarda, I'm not sure. But
well, the one thing I take away from all this is that whenever I get a message, I should instantly try to spell that dude's name backwards just to make sure it's not Satan trying to call me or something, you know?
Hello, it's Stannis?
Not this.
Just tell him I called.
Hello, this is Bob. Got you, bitch.
A Mr. Dog called?
He was calling about race car. Still got you.
Dummy.
I'm not gonna lie though. There's sometimes when I read a name or something that doesn't quite sound right, I do look at it backwards. From this movie, from the whole.
I just have the wrong set of
messages. The 80s or whatever.
I have the wrong set of instincts. Apparently, I've just never.
No, I think it comes from all these horror movies where things are you just spell it backwards and it's so clear now.
Yeah, you've watched way too many horror movies and listened to way too many Ozzy records.
Yes, because in all those times that I've looked at that name backwards, 100% of the time it doesn't mean shit backwards either.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it doesn't. And it didn't mean shit here either, but they made it mean shit. So then, this was another one of those weird scenes that I failed to mention in the deleted scenes. All right, so there's a little boy. It turns out his name's Eugene. He says there's a monster in his closet. His dad comes in. I don't see any monsters or whatever. He opens up the closet, but he doesn't look in there, and the mummy's standing there, and then just closes it. Now go to sleep. You're not sleeping with us.
That kid's got a sweet-ass pair of damn Robotech pajamas. I'm telling you.
Robotech.
I would have wanted those as a kid. I never saw Robotech pajamas either.
So then the very next scene is the boys and the Monster Squad. You know, now they're calling it the Monster Squad, right? The boys are in the clubhouse, and Eugene's in there. It's like you just saw him in his bedroom with his dad. Like, he's supposed to be in bed, and all of a sudden he's sitting in there with the dog with the rebel hat on in the clubhouse joining the Monster Squad, right? So I'm like, what the fuck? Where'd this come from? So there is a deleted scene on there that at least explains it a little better. Like, right after his dad leaves the room, the three boys, like Sean, Patrick, and Horace, like, appear in the window and say, hey, Eugene, come on, let's go, or something like that. So, like, there was, like, one little, like, literally, like, 15-second scene that would have explained why the fuck this boy all of a sudden shows up in the clubhouse.
Now, why the hell would you even cut that out? I have no idea.
Exactly. Like, but just leave that in. At least it explains, like, where'd this kid come from? You know, like, all of a sudden,
there's a certain point when you're trying to trim this movie down where, you know, continuity gets lost. You need to keep that in there if it means 15 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, like, it would have, you know, I wouldn't even have gave it a second thought if you just, like, they poked their head in and said, hey, Eugene, come on, you know. Maybe they left it out because then they'd have to explain, like, well, since you guys are here, can you help me get the mummy out of my closet? You know, maybe that's why they cut it out. I don't know, but
no. And through the entire movie, the mummy is moving slow as you would assume a mummy would.
Yeah.
Except getting out of that closet.
Yeah.
Kid turns away and comes back 2 seconds later, and he's already out the window.
Exit stage left. Yeah, you know what? Come to think of it, that's probably why they did cut that out, because he went back out the window, right? You see his bandages go out the window, so maybe that's why they cut it out, because then you'd have to explain why these three, Sean, Patrick, and Horace, didn't see the mummy just climb out of this kid's window. But still, though, I mean, like, it's just a weird transition. That's all. It would have explained it easier if they'd figured out a way to squeeze it in there somehow. So, anyways, moving along. So now they've formally formed the Monster Squad. That's what they're calling it. Then, like you said, Dracula sends Frankenstein after them, like, to get the book, and if they don't cooperate, kill them. So of course you send like a semi-retarded, reanimated big goon to go do him, and of course he does none of that. The boys go to visit a scary German guy, and then there's like a little scene where Phoebe's like messing with the flowers or something by the pond, and then Frankenstein walks up behind her, like. Clearly an homage to the original Frankenstein, right? Where the and that, he walks up behind the little girl and kills her, right?
Yeah.
Then it goes back to the boys with the scary German guy, and like he's holding a knife, like, this is your last chance to have a piece of pie. So it turns out he's friendly and everything, and they give him the book, and he translates it, and then basically tells him the whole story of like every 100 years. You can say this little chant inside this book, and then you'll blow a hole in limbo, you know, if you say this at the right time or whatever, at the stroke of midnight. And it just so happens to be 100 years. It's every 100 years, and that 100 years is tomorrow night. Then they ask Rudy if they know any virgins. It's the old spit take. Like, he does this like 2 or 3 times in the movie too. Like, hey Rudy, know any virgins? Yeah.
And I think they must have been shot that scene a few times, because I'm pretty sure that he started the spit take before the words even got before he even got out.
He's just ready to spit his drink out, like, at all times on his cool banana bike.
Yes, that's right.
So then they go back home, and then Phoebe brings out Frankenstein's monster, and then of course they quickly befriend him. They're like walking down the street like it's E.T., like holding hands and everything, like immediately, like, Frankenstein's cool, man. So
they're
then
very much like E.T. scene, right?
Yeah,
E.T.
for sure, yeah. Dracula finds the amulet, like it's in this creepy ass house that we mentioned earlier. Like he busts a hole in the wall and finds it in there, but it's covered like in a bunch of crosses and stuff. So I guess he can't quite get in there to it.
Meanwhile, I can't send anybody else, like, say, the Wolfman in there.
I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, oh, man, it's a good thing they put those crosses around it. But wait a minute. Any of the other monsters could go get it.
No. Yes.
Yeah. We're punching a lot of holes into this movie. I mean, I thought we all loved it, but apparently we hate this movie.
Oh, I do. Yeah, that might be time to mention that we poke a lot of fun at a lot of these movies and stuff, and even though many of them, a lot of them we love wholeheartedly.
Oh yeah.
And it might come across as we're like, busting its balls.
It is, but it's all fun. Yeah, it's all in jest. I mean, I think it's well established, that we all love this movie, and anyone our age bracket probably does too. But it's all in good fun. I mean, you're just pointing out the obvious, honestly.
Yeah.
So then, this is one of the best parts. There's an '80s montage. This makes the whole movie, right? There's an '80s montage of them getting ready to fight the monsters. I'm forgetting the song, but it's
Rock Until You Drop.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, I might as well mention that too a little bit on that, since we're at that point in the movie, was that song, and then the one in the end credits. The Monster Squad rap that plays over the end credits.
Yeah,
both of those were produced by Michael Cimbello. He didn't do the rest of the soundtrack. I think it was It was Bruce Broughton that did the incidental, the regular soundtrack. He just did those two songs, but he's probably most famous for doing the song "Maniac" from the movie Flashdance.
No,
it's the Maniac. Yeah, that one. I'm not gonna sing the rest of
it. No, go ahead.
You mean the Chris Farley song, right?
We have five minutes carved out for you to sing this song. Go.
I don't know. It's too much pressure on me now. So.
Now, I actually waited through the credits to see who sang that Monster Squad, because I remember that song, I used to sing it all the time.
The vocals, I'm not sure who
Monster
did the vocals
Squad, so I waited through there, I'm like, I wonder who the fuck sang this, and it just says performed by the Monster Squad. I'm like, you assholes. So, God knows who actually sang it.
That Cimbello guy, but I don't know who did those vocals.
Well, it was the Monster Squad.
It was the Monster Squad.
Yeah. So, yeah.
There's some more history on that song, Maniac, but we'll get to that once we get to some other movies, not Flashdance. We're not doing Flashdance on the show, I'm sure. But we will probably get to the movie Maniac from 1980, which this song has some history with. So we'll get back to that.
So yeah, after this montage scene, them getting ready, they're making steaks, and Rudy knows how to make silver bullets. There's all kinds of shit they're doing here to get ready.
By the way, I just want to mention the silver bullets don't have gunpowder at the back of them to fire.
They just stole their mom's
silver slug.
Yeah, they just stole their mom's silver, melted it down. Yeah.
They didn't watch Silver Bullet yet. Silver Bullet came out in '85.
Yeah, if they'd watched that, they would have knew.
Yeah.
And Gary Busey, I just felt like saying his name because he's in Silver Bullet.
Crap, I gotta say the name, otherwise for the rest of this podcast, that's all I'm gonna think about.
Yeah, you're gonna be thinking about Gary Busey.
And then Gary Busey takes the stake to the heart. God almighty, I did it again.
Remember in South Park when with Cartman, all they'd have to do is I'm sailing away, and then he'd have to sing the rest of the song. He was compelled to sing the rest, so all they'd have to say is that. He'd sing the whole thing. It's like that. I have to say Gary Busey when someone brings up Silver Bullet.
And what does it matter? We're going to cut this part out anyway.
I'm just going to cut this whole thing out.
For time, for pacing and for time, we'll just cut it down.
Yeah. So then it shows Dracula doping the Wolfman. I guess why he's the normal. So I'm assuming it's so he. What's the reason?
So he doesn't try to throw a football over a mountain.
Uncle Rico.
It's not so we could fondle his nards, though, so let's get that on.
Yeah, of course. I don't know why we're so focused on Wolf Dork here.
I think they only do that shot from the waist up.
And that's all for the Spook Show tonight. So basically Dracula dopes up the dude that's the Wolfman, so he can go over here and turn 3 girls into the brides of Dracula, right? He's just got 3 girls in a closet. As soon as he goes into the closet to do whatever the hell he's going to do to those 3 girls, the dude spits out the pills and then makes his getaway and ends up calling Sean's dad at the police department to warn him.
Because he knew his number.
Yeah, he calls him direct. He's got a direct line to this detective. Calls him and I'm warning you, I'm a Wolfman, and Dracula's coming to take your kid. And then just
and Wolf's out right.
And then Wolf's out on the phone, smashes the phone booth and runs off and howls at the moon.
Because how would you react when you got that phone call?
Yeah, right. I'm the Wolfman, and Dracula's coming for your kid. I think there's only one way to react to that, and that's get like all the police department to come help you track down this man. So yeah, Eugene.
Worth a shot, I guess. Yeah, it's a mighty big nards to pull that off.
It takes a fine set of nards to pull that off, but by God, Wolfman's got them. So then the boys are hunting around, doing whatever the hell they're doing, and then Eugene sees the gill man, like he comes out of the, he drops his Twinkie. Yeah, he drops his Twinkie in the water or something, and gill man comes up. And then he doesn't like scream or like really react to it. He just walks over to Sean or whatever and says, "Creature stole my Twinkie." Like any normal human would just fuck and then run away. Now, he just calmly goes over, "Creature stole my Twinkie."
Or if it was literally any other monster, they would just grab the kid.
The kid would be dead and would have no chance to say, "Creature stole my Twinkie." And then they would quickly go kill the other kids, and then the movie's over.
I mean, these monsters are really damn stupid.
When the creature got shot at the end, I think we mentioned about, instead of the fish, they could have had the Twinkies come out of his mouth.
Yeah.
Really love those.
So then they eventually, Rudy and Patrick, they go and ask Patrick's sister if she's a virgin. So I guess she claims she is. So then they go to Dracula's, or Sean and Horace and Eugene. Why you would take like the 5-year-old kid? I think they even say he's 5 or something, right? Why the fuck you take the 5-year-old kid to Dracula's house? But they take him, and then Dracula's down there with some dynamite trying to blow open that wall so he can get in to get the amulet. The explosion causes part of the roof to cave in, and it buries Frankenstein. Then right at that time, this is the famous scene when they're like, "Oh no, Frankenstein's trapped. He's gonna die. We have to keep moving on." Wolfman jumps out, and then they don't know what to do, and he says, "Kick him in the nards." And then Horace
Wolfman don't have nards.
Horace kicks him in the balls, and he says, "Wolfman's got nards." When the Wolfman cowers down because he just got kicked in the nuts. I just remember that being hilarious when I was like 8 or 9 years old.
Oh yeah,
I'm just rolling nards.
I'm gonna start calling them nards.
Oh, I'm sure a whole generation started calling balls nards after that scene, and just the fact that they kept calling it nards throughout this entire movie. That's not the first time. That and Wolf Dork. Either way, they just kept talking about it throughout the entire movie.
Dork and nards.
So then they were cornered. Down one hallway is Wolfman. One hallway is the brides of Dracula, the three girls that were in the closet. He's already turned them into 3 Draculars. And then to the left is Dracula himself. So they're kind of cornered. They're like, "Haven't you watched any one of the Hardy Boys movies or whatever? You pull one of this lever, and then a secret door will open. They pull the statue, and then they fall down in this hatch. Then down there they find the amulet, in the little the hole that has been blown open. But they bothered to blow the hole open, but didn't go in there to get the amulet. It's we need to go handle these kids quick. But the amulet, no, fuck the amulet. These kids, we need to go take care of this. So Sean's able to run in there and grab the amulet, and then as Dracula's got a hold of him, Horace grabs he's got garlic toast or whatever the fuck with him for some reason.
I think it was a slice of pizza, wasn't it?
I thought it was a piece of a sandwich or something that just had a bunch of garlic on it. I don't know what the fuck it was, but
well, fat kid's gonna fat, right?
Yeah. Of course, he's gonna have a tin full of something in his fucking pocket.
The pie from the scary German guy too.
Yeah. With a smile on his face. But anyways, he puts the pizza toast, whatever the fuck it is, on Dracula's face, and it burns him because it's garlic, right? So that lets them run away. And then, of course, when they go out, Phoebe is with the scary German guy. And then all the other guys show up, so they're all together now. So now they pile into the Jeep, and they're on the way to the church to do the ritual, to open up Limbo. And then they hit the mummy on the side of the road, and it lashes onto the back of the Jeep. So he's hanging off the back of it. Then perfectly, Rudy ties one of the mummy's bandages to an arrow and shoots it perfectly into a tree. And then it unravels the mummy, literally from legs all the way to head. And then Rudy says, "See you later, Band-Aid breath." And then it completely unravels him, and there's nothing but a skull on the road. The mummy's gone.
That was a really cool effect there. Actually, the unraveling of the leg and the dust flying out and everywhere.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
and that there's nothing to the mummy other than an evil spirit in a skull, I guess. So Sean's dad and his partner, they're coming down the road, like they're responding to one of the calls or whatever, and then they play like a game of chicken with Dracula's hearse, and then the hearse just drives straight through their car, keeps on going. Meanwhile, they're like, "What the fuck?" So they turn around and take off after it. Dracula arrives at Sean's house and just goes back there, lights up a piece of dynamite, throws it into the clubhouse, and says, "Meeting adjourned," and then blows it. Then just blows it to Kingdom Come. Then the dad and the partner show up, and then the partner can't get out of the car in time. Dracula, this is awesome. Dracula's throwing dynamite everywhere, right? I mean, just think about that. This is fucking awesome.
As one does.
Yeah. Dracula throws a piece of dynamite under the car. Boom! The fucking partner's dead. Then the dad starts shooting Dracula. Of course, that has no effect. He turns into a bat and flies away, and then the mom comes out right at this time to see this, and they're like, "What the fuck is going on?" And that was the scene I was talking about where there was some suitcases on the floor where she was about to leave his ass, and then this happened, so I guess it makes everything all right. So then they get... So this dad goes in and picks up the walkie-talkie because he's looking for Sean, or the kids. Can't find them, so he picks up the walkie-talkie, gets Sean on the radio, and then just throws the radio down. Like, to me, wouldn't you keep that radio with you, like, so I can keep talking to your kids, you know? And I was like, fuck, I know they're all right. Fuck this radio. And then just throws it down and runs away.
Stupid technology.
Yeah. So he tells them that they're going down to the old church or meet them in the town square or whatever. So he throws the radio down and heads out. So then they're in the town square setting up. They can't get in the church, so they're, like, right there in the street. While they're, like, getting set up to start reading the book, Sean or Patrick's sister's reading the book. With the scary German guy, Rudy fights off the brides. Like he kind of arrows one of them with the wooden stake, and then stakes another one or whatever. He's fighting them. And
now, hold on for a second. Now with this scene right here, now earlier in the movie, they specifically point out that the old scary German guy is not a vampire because he has a reflection in a mirror behind him.
Yeah.
Oh yes. Yeah.
Meanwhile, the girls are walking up, and there's business fronts along the line. Mm-hmm. And guess what you see the entire time?
I did not notice that, but
the
reflection of the women the entire time.
There's one other thing going back to that scene that we didn't mention that doesn't have anything to do with the vampirism, but it does have to do with that exact scene where he's staring in the mirror, to prove that he's not. Mm-hmm. And then he says, "I know a thing or two about monsters," and and then he closes the door, and you see his concentration camp tattoo.
Yeah.
They don't ever mention that that's what it is, but I mean, you would have to know. That he's not the scary German guy. He's, he was Jewish and was in the concentration camp, and he knows about monsters because of that. They don't spoon feed any of that to you. That's just there.
Yeah. They're trying to slip in a little history on you to see if you're catching it or not.
Yep.
It's like when we watched Return of the Living Dead, the guy that runs the morgue or whatever was supposed to be like a former Nazi or something like that. Yeah. But you wouldn't know this unless you're paying attention to like the type of gun he has and the picture in the background or some shit. Yeah, it's like that. So
another thing to point out too before we get that is isn't his sister? His sister was supposed to have spoke a little bit of German, right? At least maybe know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, she says she's not very good in her German class or something like that. She's flunking.
Well, yeah, and because earlier in the clubhouse, she's like, "Your sister doesn't speak German. All she does is hang around and let guys touch her tits."
Yeah. So
apparently we see that must have been the case because her pronunciation of German.
Yeah. So then, so Rudy's fighting the brides. Meanwhile, the dad shows up and he shoots a bat. I guess he sees like Dracula as the bat and like shoots him, and then he crashes through a window, and then he goes upstairs in this building and finds him like half Dracula, half bat. Like that's probably
the bat's man size.
Well, I'm sure that's got to be a big chunk of the budget just doing this stupid little scene, right? Like the creature makeup effect on making him look half bat. So then so they light up a piece of dynamite, or he lights up a piece of dynamite. Then the Wolfman attacks him from behind. Sean, meanwhile, the dynamite doesn't go off during this whole skirmish, right? But like Sean comes in, hits the Wolfman with like a bat or something. Dad then grabs that dynamite that hasn't gone off yet, sticks it in the pants, the front,
and the Wolfman's nards
next to his wolf dork, sticks it right there in the pants, and then they push him out of the window, and boom, he just fucking explodes in midair.
And just like that. No more wolf nards.
Yeah. At least for the time being.
Yeah.
So then
I remember now that's one of the images that stuck out to me the first time I saw that I wasn't a kid. I guess I was like, I don't know, 14, 15 when I saw it.
Uh-huh.
And was the Wolfman exploding after that scene? Like, whoa, what the?
Yeah. Yeah. So then it goes back to the Patrick's sister outside reading from the book, and then she gets done, and then nothing happens. So they're like, what the hell? And then you cut over to see the Wolfman, like his parts laying on the ground, and he's coming back together. You know, his arms and legs, his nards, everything just comes back. Nards. They reconstitute, and he comes back together. And then he comes back together, and he goes wolf shit and starts beating the shit out of cops, just like fucking left and right. Meanwhile, they got a ton of cops that are just fodder for these fucking monsters in this movie, right? They're just left and right, just getting bitch slapped and neck cracked and arms broken and everything.
They're not standing at a safe distance firing guns.
And yeah, or they don't even all come at once. Like they do the old like.
But it's just going on, man. You know, like grappling. Like I'm gonna just run in at this wolf thing, and I can take it out by my hand.
They're going full like Jackie Chan movie where they come in one at a time to attack. You know, like so he can. Do all of his stunts. So then, as it turns out, of course, this Patrick's sister is not a virgin. So she's like, well, I thought you were a virgin. Well, there was this guy. Well, that doesn't count. Like, what the fuck it counts, you know? So that's the joke, right? So we've been wasting everyone's time when she clearly just could have said, well, I'm not a virgin, you know? So anyways, then it goes back to Rudy, and he gets attacked by the Wolfman or something, and he pulls out the silver bullets and shoots the Wolfman, and so now Wolfman's dead. And the guy like goes back to normal and says, thank you, and then dies. So he has a peaceful death, I guess, in the end. So then it shows the Gill Man, he shows up, or he pops out of the sewer and then like starts bitch slapping more cops that they've sent in. Then the little girl Phoebe, it turns out, obviously, she's a virgin.
Surprise!
Surprise, the 5-year-old's a virgin. But so, she's only 5. She can't read. Like, well, the scary German guy says, well, I'll help her. You know, I'll walk her through it. So then they start reading. Horace, this is one of the better parts. Horace gets cornered and comes face to face with the Gill Man. And EJ and that other goon are like in the store and they won't let him in. So then he has to turn around with the shotgun and he just shoots Gillman one time and Gillman dies. Then EJ comes out and says, hey, fat kid, good job. My name is Horace. And cocks the So then
fat kids around the world rejoice.
Yeah, hooray! Horace is the man. So then Dracula finally arrives, and he just starts. This is where I was talking about. He's mowing down the cops. They're coming one at a time, like break an arm. Next guy comes up, snaps a neck. You know, like just one at a time, like just beating the shit out of the whole police force. And then he walks straight over to Phoebe and grabs a hold of her like by the jaw or by the neck and holds her up.
Let's start by the jaw.
Yeah, and then says, "Give me the amulet, you bitch." Then right from behind, of course, right on cue, Frankenstein shows back up and grabs a hold of him and says, "Bogus." And then smacks fucking Dracula through the air and he lands onto a spike. Then that allows Phoebe and the scary German guy to finish the incantation or whatever they're reading there. And then scary German guy throws the amulet and it opens up the hole to limbo. So everything's starting to get pulled in, you know, sucked into the black hole that has been created. And of course, in the middle of this, Dracula comes off the spike. Like, it shows the spike empty. And they're like, huh? And then Dracula jumps on top of Sean. And then Sean manages to grab a stake and stabs Dracula in the chest. Then Van Helsing appears out of nowhere. I guess he comes out of limbo. He's able to come out of limbo just for a few brief seconds to grab a hold of Dracula. And then he's fighting Dracula and he's holding him as they spin into the limbo. And he looks back at Sean and like gives him the thumbs up.
At that point, he might as well have said it. You got it, dude.
Yeah. You found out the hard way. Wolfman does have nards as he's floating away. So then, it kind of takes a bunch of stuff into limbo as they kind of float away, and then there's kind of the sad scene where Frankenstein is pulled in, like they don't want him to be, and Phoebe's holding. You know, she's not really holding on. She's got his finger, but you know. He's floating away, and then she throws her teddy bear at him, and he's like, boy, and then floats into limbo. And then the thing closes up right after that, and I guess all is well. And then all of a sudden, a tank and the fucking army roll in, and they're asking for Eugene because he had sent that little letter like, "Dear Army guys, we have monsters. Come help." So they actually fucking respond to this and show up in full force, and they're asking where Eugene is and who's Eugene and where are the monsters, and then the colonel or whatever, who is in whatever he is in charge. He's talking to Sean and the rest of them. He's like, "Who are you?" And they say, "We're the Monster Squad." And then they all kind of celebrate, and then there's the Monster Squad music, and then the end credits. So there you go, from 1987. The Monster Squad. As always, we give our star rating on a scale of 0 to 5. So, Will, where are you at on The Monster Squad?
I think I'm going to go with 3 3/4. I'd say that's fairly high for, a movie. Like if you had never seen this and, it's 2020 and you're watching a movie that's, 30 plus years old, you may not have given it as high of a grade as this, but I saw this back when I was a kid, so it holds some nostalgia for me. How about you, Smoke?
For me, same exact. It's as far as the nostalgia factor is huge. I've seen it, a dozen times at least. And again, it never gets old. Every time I see it, I never sit there and watch it going, maybe this will be the last time I watch it. Every time I watch it again, it's fresh to me. So, I'm actually go with a 4 on this one. I know it's pretty high, but that's it's an important one for me.
I guess myself, I'm gonna go with 3.5, just because of the same reasons you guys are saying. It's entertaining, it's a lot of fun. It reminds me of a good times of my childhood. Watching this with my brother and my dad and everything. Yeah, it's corny, but and it's very 80s for sure. But it holds a special place. So I'm gonna go a solid score for this one, a 3.5. With that all being said, we obviously all enjoyed it. So. We're going to go with a couple of new segments starting this show. Hopefully this will be a thing that we do every episode. Will, what's your task going to be from here on out?
Oh, if we have to name it, nothing.
If we're giving ourselves jobs, then I call it jack shit.
The jack shit rating is through the
roof. We're going to try to keep a death count or a death meter going on in these movies. In this one, I counted 8. There may have been more. God knows what happens in Limbo. And even that 8's kind of in question because, I counted the mummy in that. He's dead, but he also died again, so it's kind of hard to say. But yeah, I counted 8 total.
So you're counting the mummy, Gillman, Wolfman?
Yeah, the guy in the ambulance. The cop that couldn't get out of the car with the dynamite, the mummy, the 2 vampire ladies. By the way, I'd like to point out that there was 3. Anyway.
But you don't see what happened to her.
No.
I think you do see one of them slide into limbo, with the stake still in her. But that may or may not be the 3rd, right?
Yeah, Wolfman, Creature. And then I just put down a rookie cop and regular cop.
Yeah. Is that one of the ones that got his neck snapped, I'm pretty sure, by Dracula?
Yeah. And head crushed by the creature.
Yeah. Smoke, what's your new segment going to be?
Well, I think of the as a tribute to one of my favorite horror columnists, Chaz Balin. He used to do what was called a gore score. When I know, Josh, you were familiar with Deep Red magazine that he used to do. He wrote some books as well. He would review movies, give his skull ratings is what he did, I think, from 1 to 5 skulls. And then his gore score would be 0 to 10. So we'll say something, like Mary Poppins, of course, would be 0. Mm-hmm. Whereas something that we've done in the past, like Street Trash or Reanimator, would be like a 10 or 9 or 10. Mm-hmm. So we'll rate these. We'll call it the gore score for now in tribute to Chaz Balin. So I'd say the gore score for Monster Squad is the PG-13 movie. Some elements push that PG-13, maybe more so in the language, but a little bit of the violence, the Wolfman explosion, and then the subsequent piecing back together of his body. He got his innards out there and all that stuff. So got a little bit of splattery effects in there. Pushed it a little bit. I would say that the gore score for this would be a 2. It's PG-13, so it's not going to be pushing boundaries that way, but I think we go with a 2.
Yeah, I'd say this one definitely, like we talked about before, it definitely pushes that line, between language and the little bit of gore that you do see in it. It does push an R, But I think it definitely it earns at least a 2 for sure. And some of the things that you see.
I mean, if it hadn't been a Wolfman exploding, if it had been a human exploding like that, it would for sure have been an R. I think they maybe they gave it leeway with the PG-13 because it was a monster.
Yeah,
that blew up
because it's a fantastical character. We'll let him get away with it. But yeah, between that and the brides and whatnot getting staked and and a few other things, I mean I'd say it earns that for sure.
Creature, he gets splattered with a shotgun to the chest and needs a little bit of. I mean, there's not like a blood squib, but there's the aftermath of him there with a blood splatter on.
Which would have made it so awesome if they'd have pulled out the fish falling out of its mouth gag that they were trying to do.
They could have done it to the gut. He did a shotgun blast to the gut, like a big squib out the back of a bunch of fish.
Yeah.
Blood.
All right, so with that, we're going to tease what we're going to be watching on the next episode of the All-American Spook Show. We are going to go back to a more recent film from 2016, The Conjuring 2. We're going to revisit the Conjuring universe, series of movies that we've already watched. The first Conjuring and the first Annabelle. So we're going to go back to that universe on the next episode, and we're going to watch The Conjuring 2. The synopsis on IMDb is Ed and Lorraine Warren travel to North London to help a single mother raising 4 children alone in a house plagued by supernatural spirits. So yeah, if you want to get ahead of the game there, go see if you can find The Conjuring 2 streaming anywhere, or go rent the movie or buy it, whatever, and make sure you watch it before the next episode. So you guys got anything else to add about the Monster Squad or anything else before we wrap it up?
I think that's about it.
All right, so
Wolfman has nards.
Well, this is well established. I mean, we spent the last hour and a half or so speaking on this matter. I think it's well documented that Wolfman has wolf nards. So there you go. So now that we've firmly established that, we can go ahead and sign off for this week. So I guess for Will and the Professor Smoke, I'm Josh, and we are the All-American Spook Show podcast. We'll see you next time, guys.
And now, folks, it's time to say goodnight. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon. Good night.